Good evening. The Lawrence Alliance for Education Board meeting for September 13th will now come to order. The time is 6:08, and welcome back to school. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Present.
Edgar de Leon,
Present.
Arlene Garcia,
Present.
Juana Matias,
Present.
Maria Muller, Mayor Rizal, Chair Patricia Mariano,
Present.
Student Rep Yudriani Batista.
Present.
Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, I would like to introduce and welcome our student representative to the board, Yadriana Alvarez Bautista. She is a grade 11th student at Lawrence High School. She came to the United States in 2021 with very limited English skills. She began her education at the international school before transferring to Lawrence High School after her freshman year. She sports a 4.36 GPA and is currently enrolled in our early college program at NECC. Yadriana works part-time at Wednesdays, sets high standards for herself, and is always seeking to be the best she can be. She is a kind, compassionate young woman and a good friend to her peers. She is consistently engaged and actively participates in class. Yadriana works very hard on improving her English language skills and is always willing to volunteer and take academic risks, even when unsure of her correctness. She cares deeply about her family and shows gratitude in many different ways to her friends, teachers, and family members. Yadriana sets high expectations for herself and the future and takes her goals very seriously. She takes an interest in her peers and cares about their success while also holding them accountable. So at this, I would like to say welcome, Adriani, to our board, and we look forward to your input and perspective from the students as we work very, very hard to make our school system responsible to all. So thank you for being part of this thing. The next item on the agenda is to convene in an executive session. Pursuant to General Laws, Chapter C, 30A, Section 21A, Exemptions 3, 4, and 5, to discuss recent attempts to defraud the school system and related security issues. The board will reconvene in open session after this discussion concludes. May I have a motion to enter executive session for this purpose?
So moved.
Thank you, Juana. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Maria, please call the roll.
Dr. Dolores Calaf, Edgar de Leon,
Yes.
Arlene Garcia, Juana Matias,
Yes.
Maria Muller,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes. We will return after executive session. Thank you. Enter open session according to our usual process.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second. Second.
Thank you. Maria, please call the roll.
Yes. Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Here.
Edgar de Leon,
Yep.
Arlene Garcia,
Yes?
Juana Matias,
Yes.
Maria Muller,
Here.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes, thank you. The next portion of our agenda is public participation. The board welcomes public comment at this time. We will call people in the order they've signed up. As you begin, please state your name and address for the record. Each person is permitted to speak for no more than 2 minutes. A bell will ring when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again at the end of the 2 minutes. I ask that you please respect this limit. Profanity will not be tolerated. If used, we will turn off the microphone and the person will be asked to leave the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that during public comment, the board is in listening mode, and as such, board members do not respond to comments. Written public comments may be sent by email to lae@lawrence.k12.ma.us no later than 2 o'clock the afternoon of our meeting. The first person on our list is Mr. Mali.
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. We welcome our great teachers and Lawrence Public School employees to a new academic year. We declare the first day of the school the day of the Lawrence Public School Employees Appreciation Day. Lawrence teachers, you are number one. We support your union. Lawrence Public School, with a budget of $260 million, must pay the best compensation to our teachers, Lawrence Public School paraprofessional and cafeteria worker. We must know building multi-million-dollar school does not make Lawrence Public School great. Our wonderful teachers, our hard-working cafeteria workers, and the nurses making Lawrence Public School so great. Great Nelson Mandela said, education indeed the most powerful weapon to change the world. This change is only possible if we support our great teachers union. We do not need to hire Harvard scholar to show us how to liberate Lawrence Public School and gain independence. We only need to ask our teachers union to do and how. We welcome our wonderful Lawrence Public School employee to a new year. Lawrence teachers, you are the most important reason for success of Lawrence Public School. The responsibility of every citizen in this great nation is to support the teachers union. We the citizen united stand in support of Lawrence Teachers Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mali. And that concludes our public comment for this evening. The next item on the agenda is my chair's report. And during this time, I would like to review a couple of items with the board. The LAE goals for 2023-2024 were set for us as part of our evaluation from DESE this past June. They are, 1, to conduct a thorough and transparent budget process, 2, to complete an evaluation of the interim superintendent, 3, to conduct a search and hire a permanent superintendent who is aligned to the core values of the Lawrence community and willing and able to implement the turnaround plan to support continuous improvement of the district schools, and 4, to oversee the implementation of the turnaround plan. My intent with these goals is to present to the board quarterly updates and progress data on the goals during the year. Next, the subcommittees. The following subcommittees will be created at this time: the Superintendent Search Committee, the Budget and Finance Committee, and the Policies Committee. Anyone interested in serving on any of these subcommittees, please contact me directly. I will be making appointments in October. As far as this new superintendent search, DESE has issued an RFP which closed on August 30th. 3 vendors have submitted bids. DESE is in the process of examining these vendors, and we should hear of a decision real soon. And I'm hoping that's sometime in October. as far as.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a question if
Go ahead.
possible. We're going to be able to get the list of these potential 3 vendors for us to review before a final decision is made, is that correct?
I believe the procurement laws require that they cannot discuss the vendors in public, but we will receive the score sheets and information about the vendors after the decision is made.
Okay, maybe we can talk in an executive session. I'd love to, before someone is selected to oversee the search, which is going to have huge implications on who's going to lead our public school systems moving forward, if the LAE board can be included in that process to ascertain getting it from 3 to 1. I don't know what the legal regulations are on that, but would love to really make sure we're doing an inclusive process and that we have a say. I want to know that the vendor is culturally competent. I want to make sure that they understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish in this community. And so they're going to have a big say in picking the slate of candidates that we potentially will see. And if we can work collaboratively with them, that would be great.
All right, I will mention it at my next meeting with Desi. The next item is Superintendent Rodriguez's evaluation. I'm recommending a 9-month cycle for the superintendent's evaluation, and this will ensure that his evaluation is completed before the end of his current contract. And I'd like to make this have this recommendation in the form of a motion.
So moved?
Thank you. Second?
A second.
Maria, please call the roll.
Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Yes.
Edgar de Leon,
Yes.
Arlene Garcia,
Yes.
Juana Matias,
Yes.
Maria Muller,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Maria. At this time in the meeting, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Rodriguez for his reports.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We could pull our slide deck up. Thank you very much, Dave. Just some updates for September of 2023. The school year is definitely in full swing as we've done our first 2 weeks. Our athletics programs are in full swing as well. Girls athletics kicked off against Chelmsford the other night. Our open gym program with the school resource officer unit also kicked off last week at the Gilmet School, at the Arlington School, and at the South Lawrence East right here. So our SRO unit has open gyms 4 nights a week with our students between grades 5 to 12, I believe, for 3 hours for relationship building and also for exercise. So those are just our opening photos. Go to the next slide for us, please, Dave. I did want to talk about the new superintendent's induction program, which I am participating in. This is a program run through the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. Coaches are former superintendents who are mentoring folks new to the role, as I am. Requirements include 6 hours monthly coaching, along with in-person and Zoom sessions. We are fortunate to have Cindy Taymor, my coach here, and I'd like to invite her to the podium just for a minute.
Live. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Rodriguez, and thank you to the LAE for allowing me to attend and to speak. So the superintendent's induction program is in its 14th year. I was actually part of its 3rd year. At this point in its history, almost every superintendent in Massachusetts has gone through the program. Many of our attendees are both permanently appointed and interim, and the purpose for that is because the program, as it is run by DESE and the Mass Association of School Superintendents, believes that providing superintendents with a course of study focused on improving teaching and learning, growing equity and diversity across their districts, and developing strategic approaches to problem solving and to planning for curriculum and instruction is very impactful. And I will tell you from my own experience, I was the superintendent in Melrose, and I don't think I could have accomplished what I accomplished without the support of NISIP or with what I learned in the program. So even though Superintendent Rodriguez is an interim, he is expected to attend. I thank all of you because you do pay a tuition fee. And there is a slight commitment. Year one, I will be coaching him. I have to spend at least 6 hours a month with him. He has to attend 8 content days and do all the prep work and assignments associated. In year two, if he were to continue, it would be 5 content days, and in the third year, it's a consultancy model, which is really helpful because you meet with other superintendents and you engage in problem-solving, immediate problems. Also, as part of this program, the superintendent meets with instructors from Harvard, who, again, they've been involved in this program since I was involved, and they do a lot of work around change and how you implement change successfully. I know this is crucial to Lawrence, and I think this program is going to be a tremendous support to the superintendent. So again, I thank you for supporting his efforts in this, and I would gladly answer any questions.
Just to follow up, Ms. Tamor, as she said, although this is a 3-year program, my appointment is only through June of 2024. I did feel it was very important for me to be able to meet with other newly appointed superintendents and to receive coaching from somebody like Cindy, and also attend in-person meetings with other coaches through the Mass Association of School Superintendents. That's again why we decided to participate. We feel it's very important to have that time with other folks and to develop action planning that will result in better outcomes for students.
May I add one more thing while I'm at the podium? I know that you're talking about his evaluation. He is considered a first-year superintendent under state regulations, and DESE recommends 4 possible goals for him. Again, they are recommendations, not requirements, but I would highly suggest that he include in his goals at least one of them having to do with the completion of the program. So I would invite you to look at those, and if you had any further questions, you can always contact me. So again, thank you for your time.
One of the first main goal that we're going to work on together through the coaching is going to be maintaining momentum for the school district and stability for the school district during the interim appointment time period and during the superintendent search. So we want to make sure that the district is going to continue to be headed in the correct direction related to curriculum and instruction, learning environment, student attendance. And this is going to be accomplished not just through work with my coach, of course, but working with principals and other district leaders to ensure that meaningful progress is made through June of 2024. The second preliminary goal that we've talked about, again, is completing the new superintendent's induction program, all requirements, developing my skills in strategy development, data analysis, and instructional leadership. Again, by being an active participant with my peers who are also new superintendents and experienced superintendents like Cindy. So those are just 2 preliminary goals that we've talked about, and I'm sure we'll add some more as well.
Do we have time for a question?
Madam Chair, yeah.
Is that okay? Thank you for being here. In terms of the preparation, how much is cultural competency part of the program, given that working in a place like Lawrence is very unique in terms of other?
I will tell you that the NISA program over the past 3-4 years has made that the center of the program. They have shifted to that way. That we do a lot of work around cultural competency, diversity, inclusion. We have now as one of our instructors, Darcy Fernandez from DESE. So that really has become the centerpiece of the program.
And that was the focus of the entire superintendent's conference this summer. And as well, Cindy did mention and heavily recommended participation in the READY program, which directly relates to what you're talking about, so definitely.
Madam
Any-
Chair, a question,
Yes, question, go ahead.
if it's okay, and I don't know if this is a question for you, Superintendent, or for you, how customized is the assessment? Is it based on a survey that's been done to ascertain areas where there may be gaps and there needs to be improvement on behalf of our superintendent? Is it more generalized?
I'm not sure what assessment you're talking about.
So you're here to provide ongoing support to our superintendent until fiscal year '24, give him guidance, right, based on our turnaround plan here in Lawrence. the curriculum or program that he's going to be engaging in, is it customized to his areas of weaknesses, areas of improvement, like?
It's not customized to the individual level. It's customized, quite frankly, to what the state sees as where the state has to go in improving how we deliver services to children. I think it's very tied to that. The work that I do with Superintendent Rodriguez is very customized to Lawrence. His entry plan will require him to gather information specific to Lawrence and the challenges and successes that you have had there and where you still need to go. You have a unique situation where you are still under receivership, and he and I have spent a lot of time talking about that. But my work with him is very, very customized. As he told you, when I met with him just last week, I came to tour a school with him, the Lawler School. At that time, I highly recommended that he become involved with the READY program. If you're not familiar with the READY program, it is from MASS. It is a program centered on diversity and inclusion. And it includes two courses, Foundations 1, Foundations 2, in which you can send a team to work on their skill set in this area. Plus, it also has a superintendency network for superintendents of color and minority populations so that they meet themselves to talk about the specifics that they encounter. Lastly, as Superintendent Rodriguez and I have discussed, there's also an urban superintendents network where superintendents who are involved with the large cities, they meet as well to share resources and to share and to engage in problem solving with each other. So there's a lot of very specific work that is done according to not only your demographics, but your governments, whether you're a city or a town, whether you're a diverse city or a gateway city or a suburb. So MASS over the past several years has built out a lot of those supports. And quite frankly, they were built out in response to requests from superintendents who said, this is what we need.
I think as well, in our next communication to the board, we can include the NISP standards and the rubrics that we've been using together. Prior to meeting, we have to do self-assessments that we share with our coaches on where we think we need coaching, are you strong in curriculum instruction and maybe not as strong in human resources? Are you strong in human resources and maybe not as strong in family engagement? You have to do a self-assessment. There's a very good rubric, in my opinion, that is directly related to the DESE district superintendent and district administrator rubric. So I think we'll share that with the board next time so you can see what exactly we're working on and then maybe what we're doing. Ms. Tamor did attend Instructional Leadership Network. She did attend our opening of school ceremony. We did do a school visit. We have something set up for the high school because, our high school is one of the larger ones in the state. Also, she'll be coming to a leadership team. So we have a different modalities where she's going to drop in and give me coaching on each one of these different simulations.
Thank you, that's super helpful, and I think it'll help the board as we're looking at your 9-month assessment down the line to be able to leverage that information to accurately assess you, so appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the 9-month superintendent's evaluation makes a lot of sense. You're able to get that done in the midst of also the superintendent search. You want to have that wrapped up by the time the new superintendent is named, so we're able to onboard that person and get them ready for the 24-25 school year.
Any further questions? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Tamor. I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Next slide, please, Dave. Just some general facilities updates, and I think in the updated slide deck in your folders, you do have a little bit more high-definition photo of the Leonard School. So just some facilities updates of what's been going on during the summer. During the week of 9/5, we had some schools affected by the elevated temperatures. 80% of our square footage is covered by air conditioning, but there are still several schools that do not have air conditioning. So for those schools, our leadership team was able to go out to those schools, talk to folks, principals about issues. Our facilities team was able to secure additional portable air conditioning units to supply classrooms at the Hennessy, third floor classrooms at the Lawrence Family Public Academy, and also at the Breen School. We had leadership team members visit schools that did not have air conditioning to check on building temperatures and to speak with staff, students, and families. The rationale of our current building projects for the Oliver and the LAE schools is to assure that all of our students have temperature-appropriate learning environments, as we're sitting in right now. And also, we've used ESSER money and some other funds to fund HVAC upgrades that support temporary controls, including the Frost, Leonard, South Lawrence East, and the Arlington. As you can tell, the upgrade at the South Lawrence East is working amazing. It feels great in here. The Leonard School was not equipped with central AC, but the district used ESSER money to upgrade the electrical system, which supported window AC units and also heating units. Again, that's not the best picture, and we have a better one in the slide deck. But the Leonard School was able to have an electrical system that supports industrial AC units to allow those students to learn comfortably. And upcoming upgrades are in process for the Breen School, Tarbox, North Commons, and the Bruce School in the spring and the summer. The Bruce School specifically will be receiving central AC HVAC upgrade.
Questions? All set? Okay.
Again, the upgraded slide deck does have numbers in the third bullet. For some reason, we don't have the exact number of Junior Police Academy, but the the updated slide deck does. So over the summer, you see on the far right, our nutrition service staff members served over 93,000 meals to school-age children over the summer. So just think about that. 93,000 meals for the city of Lawrence for school-age kids, breakfast and lunch from our CAF workers. So outstanding job from them. Bottom right, several of our graduates received scholarships from Keolis for their academic achievements and helping them. We have Walkie in that picture. He's going to UMass Lowell. Julian, who's going to Houston College. Lindsay, who's also is going to Simmons College with Mr. Finn, the mayor, with Representative Reyes and Second Assistant Majority Leader Moran, as well as folks from Keolis. And again, we were happy to be able to celebrate their accomplishments over the summer. 43 students participated in our Junior Police Academy with our School Resource Officer unit. They participated in 2 weeks of instruction and received recognition from our SRO unit for their participation. And then the ice cream truck joined us at student registration with the mayor and folks from the community policing unit of the Lawrence Police. We had over 167 pre-K enrollments, 873 K-8 enrollments, 165 high school enrollments completed through last week. Our enrollment as of September 6th is 13,220 students. Of those, we have almost 5,000 students who are coded as multilingual, who are still learning some English, and we have over 25 students who are identified as students with special needs.
Questions?
Next slide, please. Also, just wanted to give you some enrollments by grade level. If you do refer to the updated slide deck, it does have enrollment numbers over the first 2 weeks of school. And at this point, we have 16 programs that are reporting over 90% attendance. And our attendance overall is 90.07%, which obviously we want all of our schools to be at 95%, but we are happy that we have 16 programs reporting over 90% attendance. And those are just our numbers, K, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, middle school grades, and then also at the high school level.
Madam Chair, if a
Yeah.
question allowed, Superintendent, for maybe this information, you don't have it today, and I would completely understand, but it would be great to understand that 10% of attendance that we're lacking, how it's broken down by grade level, and any other kind of like demographic information you could provide to us. Maybe that's something that, as an LAE board, working alongside with you, we can think about how are we trying to address that 10% and be more intentional in making sure that we can bring those numbers down?
Absolutely. I think I would, based on my experience in the district, a good number of those folks are folks who are still coming back from somewhere else and just haven't come in yet. But, as our efforts over the summer were to make sure that families knew when the first day of school is, right? Because it's much harder to jump right into school if you haven't been there the first 3 weeks and everybody else has. And everybody else has been able to get into the routine and know what time you have lunch and, oh, is my best friend in my class or not? Or did this math teacher have my older cousin or not? So, every day of school counts. We have 180 days. We need to make every single one of those count. So we can break down the attendance any way you want to, by school, by grade level, by demographics, right? Whether they're a multilingual learner or not. Are they a student who's historically struggled with attendance, or is this a new thing? And all of our schools have family engagement specialists as well as parent liaisons to work with families on their attendance and to help them get connections with, is it a health issue? Does my student suffer from asthma? Are we connecting with Greater Lawrence Family Health to help that family? Again, not in a way to, we don't want to denigrate families. We want to help them help their kids get to school.
That's wonderful, and as I mentioned, if we could get some data on public housing, so of that 10%, how many of these kids live in public housing? I don't think we have a partnership with the public housing team in the city of Lawrence, but would love to, if the data shows that there is a problem within that arena, to think about how we're partnering with them to make sure that we're providing interventions there as well. So that sounds wonderful, thank you.
Absolutely.
Superintendent, could I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Enrollment?
Yep.
If we could go back to that slide, Dave. The enrollment at each grade level is pretty consistent, but when you get to the 8th grade and then moving on to the high school, is that the drop of children that attend, let's say, the Vulcan private schools? Is that where
Yes.
that big number
Absolutely.
drops?
I believe 297 of our 8th graders were accepted to GLTS specifically, and our 9th graders at GLTS, which is another public school, great option for a lot of our students. And there are certainly definitely kids who go to Central Catholic, Notre Dame, a few kids who go to Essex, North Shore, maybe 15 to 20. So, but the most of the students that we lose from 8th to 9th grade are attending Greater Lawrence Technical School. And there, of course, are some that move, but
Right.
majority of those are going to Greater Lawrence Tech.
But that's like the biggest drop when you look at all the grade levels.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So 10%, out of the 10% attendance that's obviously not attending, that's 1,300 children, right? Are they just not going to school, but do we know where they are? How many students are just missing or we haven't heard
So,
from?
after 10 days, we're able to drop students who may have moved to New York or something else. There are always some students that we're not able to contact. We're not able to contact the family. If they are over 16, we will process a withdrawal for them. If they are under 16, we'll continue to keep them enrolled while we do home visits, while we look on social media to see if we can connect with a family member. Do we know the older sibling or something to connect with? So for anybody who's under 16, we continue to keep them enrolled and we continue to try to locate them. For students who are older than 16, after we send out letters, after we do a home visit, after we try to connect with them electronically, at some point, we do withdraw them.
So we do have a list of
Yeah.
steps for every one of those
Absolutely.
children.
Required by law. All public schools are by law required to have a withdrawal process for students who are over 16 to electronic communication, written communication, sending an invite with a specific date, inviting them to the school for a re-engagement meeting, CR16 process. Yeah.
But for under 16?
Under
we
16,
call
we
their
keep
home.
them enrolled until we find where they are.
We
Required.
we search for them, okay?
Madam Chair, one other question for Superintendent. The 908 students in grade 12, are we tracking of that 908 students who are attaining a community college or going to a four-year institution? Is that a part of our responsibility or not in the
So part
public
of
school?
the senior exit survey at the end of the year, students fill out, and again, this is self-reporting, how many of them are planning on attending a two-year college, how many planning on attending a four-year college, how many of them are planning to go to postgraduate at GLTS, how many of them are going into the armed forces, how many are just going into the workforce. So we have that data, we can share that with you at the next meeting.
That would be wonderful. And do we have longitudinal data in terms of like, they may be exiting out and saying, I'm going to Northern Essex Community College for 2 years. Do we track them transferring to UMass Lowell, or is that not within our capacity?
That is more self-reporting, because they
Okay.
have to self-report that. And some of the folks in Gear Up can keep track of that based on their FAFSA ID. We can see where they're going. But a lot of it is self-reporting.
Okay,
Their
thank you.
persistence rate, like are they still in school after 2 years? A lot of that is self-reporting.
Okay, thank you.
I was looking for that data for you, Warner. Believe it or not, I happen to have it thanks to Chris. But I'll let the superintendent continue, and I'll look for it, I'll find it.
Again, just a continued discussion on what our district priorities are for this year, the instructional core. We want to make sure that all of our students are getting rigorous instruction with rigorous curriculum. We want kids talking to each other about academics inside the classroom, and we want the teachers checking for understanding in the classroom. We continue our push for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We want to give all students agency to inform us of what the student experience is. We also want to hear from their families as well. We're focusing on multi-tiered systems of support to make sure that all of our students are participants and decision-makers in their learning. And then, of course, as we said, we have almost 5,000 students who are still classified as multilingual learners. So we want to amplify their learning experiences and make sure that we are focusing on their needs to help them achieve their goals, because 40% of our school district, it's a massive number of our students. So this is just, again, a quick focus of, what our priorities are this year as we move into the new school year. You can go to the next slide, Dave, if we don't have any questions. Just a transportation update. We are very happy to report that we have a transportation manager, Naomi De La Cruz. At this point in the school year, we're transporting over 3,100 students daily. During the summer, we conducted a mini transportation audit calling 40 families who received transportation last year to gauge their level of satisfaction with transportation. So we wanted them to tell us, did they think transportation was poor? Was it fair? Was it average? Was it good? Was it excellent? So we had eight families report that their satisfaction level was poor or fair. So what we've been doing with those families is we've been going out, checking bus stops to make sure that the bus assigned to their student is showing up on time and is showing up at the right place. And we're going to reconnect with those families mid-October, and hopefully, and we're very confident that they're going to report that they're happy or they're going to give us an excellent rating for transportation. We've done also just general bus stop checks for the high school students, as the high school buses transport 50-plus students. So if there's a problem with one bus for the high school, that's 50 students who are affected. So what we did the first 2 weeks of school, we were out at the bus stop locations, Tower Hill, Arlington Neighborhood, Prospect Hill, making sure that if the bus was supposed to be there at 6:56, that it was there at 6:56, that it wasn't there too early or too late. If it's there too early, some kids are still walking to the bus stop. If it's there too late, some of the kids have left, right? So we're happy to report that the buses are a minute or two early at most, and they are waiting to start their, they'll wait if they're 2 minutes early. If they're supposed to be there at 6:54 and they roll up at 6:52, they're going to wait there 2 minutes to let students get on to make sure that the kids get to the high school on time. Because again, transportation is a huge factor for attendance at the high school level. And again, we did this individually and with group pickup locations. Myself, Ms. Hernandez, our Chief Operating Officer, and our new Transportation Manager, Naomi De La Cruz. Yadriani, I don't know if you take the bus. Do you take the bus? I would be glad to hear your thoughts on the bus transportation system at this point. Mr. De Leon, if you could just lend her your microphone.
Any questions?
I think Yadriani's going to have.
Oh, good.
Oh, about the bus, I think, yeah, they're good because they're always on time. And yeah, our bus drivers are so good with us also. Yeah.
And we do have GPSs on all our buses, so we're able not just to do these in-person checks, but we can also go back to the office and, check online saying, okay, well, is this bus on time? But we want to make sure, we want to be doing both so the families can see us out of the bus stops, and also that we're doing the algorithmic checks as well to make sure that the buses are picking up who they're supposed to pick up at the time they're supposed to pick up, where they're supposed to pick up. So we're very happy at this point.
I know in my experience in my school, we have an app that our families have on their phones where they're able to track the bus. Is that for Lawrence as well?
That has been something we've been talking about for some years because, again, if you can track where your Domino's pizza delivery is, it's very useful, right? Especially for the high school kids. Sometimes, again, things are a little bit early or a bit late. We're not at that point yet, but it is something we'll continue to discuss with North Reading Transportation because, again, especially at the high school, the kids, maybe after school, maybe their bus leaves at 3:10, but they want to go get a cup of coffee. They want to be able to run to Dunkin' Donuts and get back before the bus leaves because they don't want to walk home. So that'll be something that we definitely continue to have discussions about.
Superintendent, if I can interrupt you. The reason I have this data on the seniors is because I have a neighborhood meeting every month, and around this time of year, there's a gentleman at that neighborhood meeting that always asks me for this data. So before I go, I make sure I have it. The senior survey results showed that 357 students were planning on going to college. Other choices included 123 for a trade school, the military 9, and entering the workforce 67. And this was like a voluntary survey, correct, Superintendent?
Yeah, again, we have to rely on self-reporting for these things because, student may be accepted to UMass Lowell, but just because they're accepted doesn't mean that they're going to attend, right? Some might opt to end up going to Middlesex or NEC or to UMass Dartmouth instead. So we really rely on self-reporting on these things, which is still a useful data point for us.
What were those numbers again, Madam Chair? You said 357 students were going to
Hold on.
college, 123 to trade schools.
9 were military, and 67 were entering the workforce.
So that's about, and this depends on how many graduated fiscal year '22, that's about 556. So, if we're graduating 1,000 students, 50% of them are going potentially to some form of higher ed or entering the workforce. Just food for thought for us to think about what we can do as an LAE board with you, Superintendent Rodriguez, on being more intentional and making sure that our students know all of the opportunities available to them that are going to lead to greater economic mobility. We lose a little bit of control because they're graduating, so I get it. But, early college program, like how do we expand, scale, invest greater dollars there, right? Because while they're in school, they're getting exposed to that, I think is really just critical. So appreciate that data and look forward to working with everyone here to think about how we increase those numbers.
So just an HR update, we did have a transition in our HR as our assistant superintendent who oversaw HR last year, transitioned to a position in the Lynn Public Schools in July. So we've been working very hard with our HR director and all the folks in HR over the summer on filling our vacancies. Currently, we have about 55 teaching vacancies, and every day that might go up by 1 or go down by 2, and we'll continue to update you throughout the school year on our vacancies. Through September 5th, from July 1 through September 5th, Human Resources has processed 387 hires, including teaching staff, administrators, CAF workers, safety officers, paraprofessionals. We are continuing to offer sign-on bonuses for all staff who decide to join the district and referral bonuses to eligible staff who will refer new teachers to us. At our new teacher orientation on August 23rd at the Frost, we had required training, and we also distributed 152 laptops for new hires. Our all-staff opening day ceremony was emceed by our Lancer cheerleading squad. They brought tremendous energy, and also we had student performances by our summer music students. So it was really a great day. Great picture of the mayor with the fellows from the cheer squad. Picture with Miliana and Jay Ashley, who are our student MCs. At the new teacher orientation, there were Christian Kingsley, one of our former students, and then at the bottom, some of our elementary and middle school students who performed as part of the music program. So definitely a great day.
Any question?
Yeah, Superintendent, what does our diversity look like in terms of our educator workforce?
Again, one of our major focuses is to get our teaching staff to more reflect our student demographic. Many of the things we're doing are going in that direction. I believe our numbers of Latinx teachers, I think, is 24%. We can get definite data on that for you. So it will be 23% of 1,400 students at this point, and we can definitely update you as HR continues to process new hires. But that's a wide discrepancy between our student demographic, right? Ms. Matias, which is 94% Hispanic Latinx identifying. So there's still a big gap. We have a lot of work to do. We are partnering with UMass Lowell and Regis on that effort as well.
Super helpful. And what have you seen? I know we're still really early in the year around like behavioral health support of our students. Do we have sufficient staff to enter fiscal year 23, 24 to meet the need? What grade levels do you think we need more of that? Is that really in the high school, and are we well equipped?
I think it's across grade levels. I think obviously we want to have a strong base in the pre-K students and the kindergarten, elementary students, but also we want to support all of our kids, pre-K through 13. I think we're well-staffed in all areas. We've directed a lot of the Student Opportunities Act money. Specifically, families indicated they wanted more safety officers, they wanted more guidance counselors, they wanted more school adjustment counselors, also interventionists. We've used ESSER money to hire interventionists for students in middle school and elementary school so that principals have an additional math teacher or an additional ELA teacher to meet students' needs, because oftentimes behavior is related to students struggling academically. So I think we want to support our kids academically and also social emotionally so they don't have behavioral struggles. I think we're in great shape as far as having enough positions to hire. We're not fully staffed yet. Our goal, of course, is to be 100% staffed, and we'll continue making steps. I can't guarantee that we'll be 100% staffed at any point during the school year, but we're always going to continue to be posting jobs, interviewing for positions to make sure that our kids have the support that they deserve to be successful.
Just a follow-up question, if I can, Superintendent. Are we seeing the vacancies really focused on the high school, or is this teaching vacancies spread throughout?
Yeah, I think the teaching vacancies are spread throughout the district. You know, there are a couple schools that have a higher percentage of vacancies, and we are assigning members of the leadership team to work with those schools directly, setting goals for them, saying, okay, you have 10 vacancies right now. On October 1, we want to see that down to 5 vacancies. October 15th, we want it down to 2 vacancies, and then we'll adjust as we meet with them. Also, we have HR supporting them, sending them resumes if they receive them. Also, making sure, again, that the teachers know that there's a referral bonus. If I am a grade 6 teacher at a school and there's not a math teacher and I'm able to, through my network, find someone who wants to work in Lawrence, I'll get a referral bonus for that. And the new staff member will get a sign-on bonus, just to incentivize folks to find new staff for us as well, to help us in that process.
And if any way we can request, sort of by schools, the teacher-student ratio, given 52 vacancies, it can impact teaching, and that'd be great. Just
Yeah,
to see where we
absolutely,
are.
we can give you that. That's public knowledge. We have to report that to the state every
Yeah.
year, our pupils, staff-to-student ratio, so we'll give you that.
Thank
On this slide, just some information on new hires. We have 233 new hires. So these are folks who never worked for the school district. There are 51 students who we are rehiring, who had left the school at some point, the school district at some point. We feel this is a very positive number. Folks who have done something else, maybe in a school district, maybe in the private sector, but are deciding to rejoin the Lawrence Public Schools. So we see that as tremendously exciting that folks are deciding to come back to us. And then there are 103 who are a salary change, which means that they have gotten a higher level position within the district, which we also see as something that's intensely positive, right? We want paraprofessionals to go to teachers. We want teachers to go to deans. We want deans to go to assistant principals. We want assistant principals to go to principals. So salary change means that they had a position in the district, but they are going to some different position at a higher level. And again, we can break this down by how many hires by school, how many vacancies still at which school. You know, does the LAE school have any vacancies left, for example? What is the vacancy? Just so that everybody's fully informed about that.
That's great. One question, Superintendent. 233 new hires, that's great. What are our plans to ensure retention of these hires? To make sure that fiscal year '24, we're doing surveys with the new hires, whether they're teachers or paraprofessionals, to understand their needs, what the gaps are. Any intentions around that from your team?
Absolutely. I think learning environment is very important. Like, you want to be happy in your learning environment. That's one thing. Obviously, what we can do for folks financially, I think, is a big thing for retention, too. We were able to give folks a retention bonus at the end of last year. I think that's compensation is probably the primary reason, right? We want to make sure we're compensating our folks adequately, however possible, rewarding their efforts. We are in the process of onboarding an executive director for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging to create affinity groups, right? To make sure folks feel heard, valued, and that they belong. So all of these things are things that we're working on to retain our staff. Also, the work that we're doing with Regis and with UMass Lowell for our parent-to-teacher and our, parent-to-para and our paraprofessional-to-teacher program, which are mostly local folks. We do want to increase the number of local folks that work for us, right? We'll help our retention if they live in Lawrence, Methuen, or Haverhill, things like that.
That's super helpful, and I don't know if this is a question that you can answer now, so I don't expect an answer. But if we could survey paraprofessionals and teachers at some point throughout the year, and if that data could be provided to the LAE board, just in terms of like what their work place looks like. Are they happy, content? I think that would just be great data for us to be able to have access to.
Yeah, we can share the staff survey that we gave last November, I believe, with you, and we will be doing that again this year. And it has, I think, 20 different questions about professional development, learning environment, all these kinds of things that I think directly relate to your question, Ms. Matias.
Thank you.
Superintendent, do we still have a mentoring program?
Oh, yes, we're required, of course, to have mentoring, absolutely. So any new staff member receives a mentor. There's a certain number of hours they need to do, kind of similar to what I'm doing with Ms. Tamor, right? You know, we want folks to have someone that they can rely on, someone who has been successful as a teacher, someone who's an experienced teacher, to help them through their learning process. You know, what's the best way to lesson plan? What's the best way to have good classroom management, right? What's the best way to interact with families? So definitely, we're required to do that, and I believe it's 50 hours that they have to do over the year. They're required to keep a log, and we need to submit that to the folks at DESE for record-keeping purposes.
Superintendent, what's your, biggest worry when it comes to our human resources, right? Like, you're entering the new school year, you oversee a million things. When it comes to teacher and staffing, what's your biggest concern as we continue to move along the school year?
I don't think there's a biggest concern. I think there's, you know, as far as HR and onboarding new folks, I think, again, like, you want to have a good place to teach, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, like one of my teaching assignments was at a building that was built in 1850, right? Obviously, it's tough for places like that to have good temperature control, good technology, things that folks need, right? You need a good projector, you need these things. So instructional material is one thing, also the learning environment, right? We want all of our schools to have a great positive learning environment for kids, teachers, and families to feel safe when they're there. We want facilities to keep it clean, right? To respond to teachers' needs. We also want human resource to be able to onboard folks in a timely manner so that, okay, you're hired to teach math. We want you to hear from HR within a day or two. We don't want you waiting 2 or 3 days and think what's going on, to possibly lose folks like that. So all of those things are things that we think about with our staff members, right? All of those things are concerns. Those were things that concerned me when those are things that concerned me when I was a principal. Those are things that we want to make sure that we're supporting our principals with so that they can be successful at onboarding new staff and retaining staff.
Anything else? Okay, one.
Over the summer, we had 77 students complete their graduation requirements. They participated in our August graduation ceremony. And then we also had 1,300 students participate in our Level Up summer program, almost 200 students in our newcomer summer program, over 600 students at the high school for some type of credit recovery, and then over 500 students in our extended school year program. So a lot of learning over the summer.
Superintendent, of the 77 that graduated, which I was there, which is lovely, do we know where they were going, what they were doing?
They would have been part of the senior survey, submitting their post-grad plans. During June, they submitted that survey. I'm not sure if we have that broken down by summer graduates and June graduates, but we can certainly check on that to see if we can sort that by June graduates and August graduates so we can know what they're doing.
Thank you.
All right, that is it for my updates. We do have an ESSER update from our grants director, Mr. Heath, to talk about where we are with our ESSER grant spending down, and we have some good news and hopefully some helpful updates for you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you again for inviting me back to share with you our ESSER update. I look forward to presenting to our new board members as well. This is something that we've done regularly since the beginning of ESSER to share with the community how we've been utilizing and gaining traction from the grant dollars that have been awarded to Lawrence Public Schools. So this is a higher level share in terms of some of the ways that Lawrence has been spending their grant. I want to keep you updated on the types of things that we're using the grants for, how much of the grant is being used, and how much is left and the opportunity that exists for that. So ESSER 1 was part of the CARES Act. That was an award of $6.3 million. I will be averaging some of these numbers just to save you. But of that, we were obligated in ESSER 1 to provide allocation for our private school prop share. So private schools within the city of Lawrence were able to participate in our funding as well. My team managed that for them. And of that, their prop share was for $490,000. That grant has been 100% allocated and utilized. And that grant end date was 9/30/2022. So again, that was ESSER 1. Just kind of high level, I'd like to share that each ESSER kind of tells a story and how we used it and also what we were responding to as a community at that time. So I think the trend that you would see here is that what did our community need, what did our students need, what did our teachers need at the beginning, and quite frankly, what we needed was things. So we needed to acquire goods for our students and for our teachers to be able to help them stay connected to their learning throughout this time. What you'd see in here, I did include some examples of the costs that were used, hotspots throughout our community, so our community was connected. We also had iPads. We had a big iPad initiative for the students. Each student was ensured an access to a device to keep the learning and the connection to the schools going. We had a lot of licenses that were used for remote curriculum as well as professional development for our teachers. So those were the types of things and items that we needed during that first phase. ESSER 2 is still going. That had a timeline of March 20th, 2020. That's when services were able to go back to that date. We are still currently using the funds as they've been planned, and that end date is September 30th of 2023. The amount award for that was $24 million plus. I am very proud to share that we met our spending deadline by a month already. We are 100% spent on that. So I'm very proud of our team for being able to accomplish that. Goes without saying that it takes a village, and I'm very proud of the grants village that we have here and able to move this money in a way that the community felt important. It did not mandate equitable services or a prop share. That was the difference with ESSER 2. Our private school partners were able to access a different federal act funds. The important thing for ESSER 2 is that it focused on specific areas. Those were academics, social emotional supports, operational elements to provide and support our students, and mental health services and supports. There was one seed that was planted with this, and that was that mental health seed, which required at least $10,000 flat to be used in that support. Our expectations were much higher than that. The wish of the community for how we spent was much higher than that. So that was something that I can share a little bit more depth in the next slide. So ESSER 2 was part of the Coronavirus Response Relief Supplemental Appropriation. That award was $24 million. Again, it's 100% expended. And that you can see the story that this one tells is that different from the last time, we needed some things still in order to help support our students, but we also needed to help support our learners and our students with some services. So we needed the help of others to help through this time. And those others were working on our facilities. Superintendent Rodriguez shared some highlights, which I'm very happy that we were able to embed some major facility projects into ESSER as well. This is that tip towards what ESSER funding was able to do in a response to a pandemic, and now what it is able to do to help us move forward and grow. And so in that area, we had a lot of professional development. We contracted with professionals for restorative justice practices. There was a lot of questions around how are we supporting our students' mental health and wellness. And there was a lot of support that we gathered in that area and were able to provide for students and still providing for students. The interesting thing here is that the way that the procurement worked is that we procure goods and services with understanding that that's going to continue. So the services will continue through the 3 grants. So you'll see some overlap between the 3 so that there's consistency in servicing. Just some highlights here for the supplies and the materials. Here we were pivoting a little bit away from some of the emergency response and able to help support students through those high need areas. We did a lot of work in the schools, helping students to be present and be able to attend to their learning space. We had a huge push for SEL supports. We created calming centers in every single school, access to tools that they can use for coping during difficult times. So I think like that was a proactive response to something that we were seeing that was unanticipated, which is exactly what the grant should be used for. So here we are with ESSER 3. This has a completion date of September 30th of 2024. So here you'll start to see again some of the overlap. So we don't have a delay of services or a loss of services. We have them kind of finding themselves in 2 and also 3 so that we didn't have that. Just some highlight things here is that there was a 20% minimum requirement to address learning loss. We are well beyond that. We exceeded that. That was deemed one of the most important factors for our community and how we approached our students' learning. So there was a significant amount that was put into that. I'll share some of those specific numbers a little bit later. But the importance there is that it was helping to support students social emotionally, but as well their academics, because that's essentially what the data was showing us and what we were seeing in our students, that's what they needed. So the other piece to ESSER 3 in terms of its regulations was that there was allowable costs that mirrored some of the costs from before, but also again helped set up for future responses and readiness. So ESSER 3 is part of the American Rescue Plan. There was $54 million in the allowance for that. At this time, we've expended and encumbered $11 million. That's a 20% use of allocations. And the total encumbered amount needs to be met by 9/30/24. So there is a lot of focus right now on ESSER spending. And this is one way that we're able to share, but every bit of information that we're sharing is actuals. This is data that was just pulled together for the presentation, but it's also data that we share with DESE often. We have auditors that are in place through the City of Lawrence. We're in our 3rd audit right now. So we are continuing to monitor, meet all of our objectives, be compliant. So the use of the funds for ESSER 3, again, shifted more towards opportunity and less in response. But it's, so some things that you'll see in this is it's kind of balancing out a little bit more in terms of its percentage of use spending. There's certainly a lot of investment in our students' learning, social emotional work. We have our staffing that you can see is nursing, adjustment counselors, social workers, interventionists. We've also added additional supports to our early college program, tutors, our LPS program, which is a wonderful program. We really increased the support for that program, pulling in a lot of health service providers. Another big piece here is the Acceleration Academies and how we're supporting our students in their learning. These are big investments. We went really strong on what supports look like. We had tripled the size of our summer school programs and increased our Acceleration Academies. We really have exceeded any kind of spending that we had ever done in those areas before. So that was certainly no easy lift, and that took the entire LPS village to support that number of students to that capacity for those academies. So I just want to put a nod out for that. Lastly, just the contracted services. That number is large, but it's varied in terms of who the vendors are and who we do enter into contracts with. A large portion of this is within the facilities. So as that was shared, we have HVAC and air quality systems improvements throughout the district. Currently, we are in contract work with Arlington, SLE, and Bruce. And in addition, those schools are getting boiler and ventilation systems are Tarbucks, Lawler, Leonard, and Hennessy. Prior, I think I noted it, but the Frost Middle School, Frost Complex had an entire revamp as well, and that was a big undertaking. That was a $5.4 million project, and that's coming to completion. Happy to say that that project is almost done. We have a punch list that we'll continue to work on throughout this fall, and that project should be done by October. So I'm sure there's some questions and some things that I might be able to answer for anybody, I'm hoping.
Can I ask the first of a few? First off, thank you for the presentation, and I think
Sure.
the expansion of the summer program, I think, has been beneficial to our students. Specifically around social-emotional well-being for our students, it seems to be a big focus of the funding, but we're also contracting outside. What does exactly that mean for those of us who have no idea what that means? Instead of employing folks within the school system, it seems like we're contracting outside. What does that actually mean?
So that's a really great question, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. So
Please do that for me, because
yeah, that's okay. So contracted services are really who we enter into a contract or an agreement with to provide either goods or services. So our contracted services in this particular case are the general contractors that are working on the Frost project. They are testing companies that help to support speech and language, occupational therapy, BCBA work to help our students in their learning environment. We were able to enter into contracts with contracted services for remote learning and further learning products. Those enter into contracts as well. So the contracted services part is really very broad, but I want to go back to what you were saying about the SEL piece. And so that really dovetails kind of a human piece in terms of our ability to add adjustment counselors to all of our schools. We also added BCBAs district-wide, and those are behavior supports, highly qualified behavior support specialists that come into the schools and work on the ground with students. You want to speak to some of that? Sure.
Hi, everyone.
I'm going to ask our Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services just to piggyback on to the discussion.
Sure, just to piggyback on what Chris was saying, we also, for example, contracted with Leslie University, who does this incredible course for trauma-informed teaching. We did a Greater School Partnership, who does our restorative practice. So they really bolster and really focused on helping our staff with addressing that social emotional learning piece. So they're still with us, really helping us navigate and making sure that we have this robust offering for our students.
So although we're not adding FTEs or staff, we're amplifying our current staff's ability through the professional development through these contracted services.
Yeah, and I think also just to reiterate, this was great seed money, and the SOA really helped support it now. And so what we're doing is we have 24 clinical staff now on board. We have 20 new at the high school. We have 30 board certified behavior analysts. We were able to really support that emotional piece. 26 of the 32 schools we have currently really robust support teams within the schools helping with that piece.
So just a follow-up, because it goes specific to this question that you're asking, Edgar. So this is like never before seen kind of money, right? 54 million, 20-something million dollars. I mean, you could really do transformational work if it's being leveraged correctly. When we look at the 54 million, we've expended about, or are in the process of expending 11 million. But when you look at that total sum, how much is going to consulting, getting that third party to come in and provide services for us, versus putting in additional capacity within our school system, and in the places where we are adding capacity, new staff, right? Is the plan that the SOA is going to be able to continue to sustain those new expenses down the line?
So the first part is what those consultants are doing is supporting the staff. They're coming in to really, like we have Mass General coming in, think kids, Mass General Psychiatry coming in to really train and offer a really robust curriculum for our staff to use and to be able to implement. So that consulting is really building capacity, like you said, and like any good consulting, you want them to start off here and then phase out. And it is to also support the SOA money is going to come in and to this, the ESSER was seed money for the SOA to come in and to sustain that,
You're not
those
necessarily
positions.
hiring new staff.
I think-
You're bringing in a consultant to support on
Yeah.
staff that's on the ground.
I think the general
No,
question.
the new staff is going to continue, those 30 BCBAs,
Okay.
those, the
So you're
20.
doing both. You're hiring and supplementing current staff. And then my
Correct.
question to you, when you think about procurement, right, with some of these contracts, are we giving any thought to diversity when it comes to that, right?
Oh, of
You know,
course, yeah.
probably one of the biggest employers, ton of money. How are we being thoughtful in terms of which consultants we are leveraging? And is there a thought in the RFP process when you guys are doing that?
Of course, it's paramount in the work we do, understanding our student population, understanding cultural responsiveness.
And it-
That's
However, too, we have to be, I'm sorry. Yes, that being said, but we also have to be very mindful about laws and those
Yep.
procurement laws that exist.
Yeah.
And we have people that are, very, very tasked at making sure that we're following those laws. And so when we enter into a contract, many of those are through the bid process. Some of those are open bids, some of those are closed bids. And so that is a very public process. And that does have to follow regulations. So that's working in partnership with the city of Lawrence, because technically the contracts that we're entering in are entering in through the city of Lawrence.
Chris, can you just explain what the difference is between an open and closed bid?
I don't know if I'm the best expert on that one, but I can tell you that when there's a bid put out to public, that it's an open time where anyone can participate in that process. Then that becomes a competitive process where everyone enters in their best bid, and then through open communication, this is done in public, and anyone can come and see this, the envelopes are opened, if you will, and the bids are reviewed and then awarded based off the criteria. So it's less open towards, it's quite rigid in terms of how it's applied. So there's less freedom in terms of perhaps who you enter into a bid with, so long as they've all met the criteria. So it's really important to put in place the first RFP that meets our needs. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but.
Thank you. And I think just to get back to the original question, which is, I think, are we going to face an ESSER cliff next September when the ESSER funding goes away?
Right.
And in my opinion, no. I believe the SOA money that we receive, the increases in the SOA allocation will allow us to maintain any staff that we've added. If you look at the SOA formula, it weighted towards helping communities that have larger numbers of multilingual students, students with disabilities, students who are classified as high needs, all of which Lawrence has high numbers of. So we believe we're going to be able to maintain our FTEs that we've added, and a lot of the PD that we're able to do now through SOA money going into next year. So in our opinion, we're not fearful of losing staff members or losing capacity as we move forward, because we can't lose momentum.
That was going to be my follow-up question, so thank you.
One more question. Are you guys measuring outcomes, and does ESSER require you to measure outcomes when you're infusing tons of millions of dollars? Like, how are we measuring whether this is actually having a long-term impact on our students?
Sure, so some things are pretty obvious in terms of completion, like a construction project that has a start, a finish, and an end, and then there are people that monitor how the process happened.
Yep.
In terms of some of the contracts that we enter into for professional development, that's really assessed by our administrators, by our teachers, the learning outcomes are measured as a result of that. So yes, DESE does require that. The federal government does require that. Just like some of the other requirements that I embedded, there's a compliance component as well. So,
Thank you.
yep.
And as just my final question, so I apologize. But we're setting high standards in terms of what we're offering our families in Lawrence with this, which is incredible programming. Is there fear that with this money coming to an end, that we're not able to do that, and then we have to then readjust our priorities, right? So right now, it seems like social-emotional one is one. Is there a nervousness or consideration about what comes next in terms of that aspect to it?
So one thing, I would kind of just put all the construction part to the side and really just talk about the things that we were able to do are things that are part of our fabric, a lot of it. So like the LFIS program, for example, it's a cherished program here within Lawrence. I think it's really something of a shining star. And so what we were able to do is to really complement and supplement that. So go big, right? And then same thing with our summer schools and our acceleration academies. The time was seen as precious, so we doubled down on that. So it's not that the summer school program is going away, it's just perhaps its grandness and the capacity will shift back to a time when we probably needed it.
Right.
So,
Thank
And
you.
hope
I
that
think, you know.
helps.
Yeah, it does,
no.
it does, thank you.
And I think too, like ESSER was to help what happened during COVID, right? So now, last couple of years, we've been able to run, you know, there was no remote learning last couple of years. We're able to run our regular instructional programs with enrichment after school and all these other things. So we expect as we get further away from lockdown and from, you know, the remote learning, the reason why we have ESSER funding is to address what happened in 2019, 2020, 2021. And each year away, we should have less impact from that. And the money that we've spent from ESSER should be addressing that, so.
And I trust I'll be invited back in a few more months, and I'll be giving you more updates, and I can share that as well. And if you have any specific requests ahead of that time, certainly reach out, and I can try to prepare as much information ahead of time.
My last question will be, we have approximately a year to spend the remaining 40-something million dollars. Do you already have projections in terms of where those buckets, what buckets of work we want to invest that in? And do we have any concerns as to whether we will be able to spend down before September?
Yeah, that number sounds huge, but I feel really good about where we are and the commitments that we've made. So what that doesn't show is how long some of the commitments are. The construction projects alone are upwards of $20 million. So those pieces are in place, right? So those are, and I think in terms of that nod towards sustainability, this is an improvement that is transformative, that is a one-time opportunity. So the city's buildings are going to be better, they're going to be healthier, they're going to be more modernized because of a one-time opportunity. And that really is what this is. And then SOA is about a continuance of service and support.
Chris,
Yes.
I was going to let you off the hook, but I just have this crazy question.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, at what point would you or the district start looking at what we can't sustain?
Right.
You know, we have until September 30th, 2024 to spend that money, but there needs to be a plan prior to that saying, this program we just cannot sustain, and then what are we going to do about it?
I think, Pat, that's the hard work that school communities have to do, that everyone is doing and going to be faced with. I really do feel like we were very mindful about the commitments that we made at the beginning and whether they could be sustainable. And I think it's the scale piece that I would really look at, and that's the fine tune in terms of the scale and the capacity of initiatives or programs. That's where things might have to change, and there will be hard decisions made. I feel confident about that. But I think what is most important is that we're keeping the tenets of the community intact. Their wishes from the beginning were to work on these 4 focus areas, and we're going to continue to do that. I think there are going to be hard decisions to be made, but I feel glad that an opportunity like SOA funding is coming in behind it. So its intended purpose was to let ESSER plant a seed, and the things that you want to continue to grow and harvest can be maintained through an SOA funding.
I think we were deliberate too last year when we were planning and deciding, like, how many teaching positions are we going to add to every school based on ESSER? And we made a deliberate decision not to add 5 teaching positions to every building. We give every building one interventionist to make sure that we didn't overcommit, and then all of a sudden have this period where we lost a bunch of FTEs or interventionists. And we feel confident with, I mean, not just our SOA increase, but also with our Chapter 70 increase, that we're going to be able to maintain any positions that we did add through ESSER. So that's kind of our feeling right now.
So with the with the next year's budget process, that's probably where you're going to see some of the impact of losing this money or losing specific programs are going to happen. When the principals come in and are requesting certain things, that's probably where you're going to start feeling the pinch.
I think that there have been easier times to say yes right now to certain requests that are perhaps sometimes locally funded, where we are able to use this outside funding to help support that. But, you know, ideally that, like for curriculum, say, those are local costs typically, and then there's always other funding that comes through other grants that I currently apply to, or some of our entitlement funds that happen, but ultimately, we want data to drive whatever decision we make, right? So that is going to be the hard work, I feel, of the district's leadership team to really mine through that data and be really mindful about what they want to further support and what had a need. And some of the things that we've done and purchased and procured along the way had a need at that moment, and that moment has ended, and we can pivot those funds or let those funds go. That's kind of the best, example I can give. Okay. And I'll be back in a couple of months, okay?
You mentioned that you guys invested in early college. In what way did you invest ESSER dollars into the early college program?
So that's a great question. So the early college program exists. One of those strands is healthcare. So we were able to create an experience at the high school that was already part of the high school's fabric. What we were able to do with ESSER funding was to be able to kind of go on top of that with a deeper experience and go wider. So we were able to buy some actual more hands-on equipment, some of the living, trying to think, there's like devices that the community uses, whereas before they may not have had access to those specific real workforce devices. We were able to do that. So that's kind of a way to give back to the program and make it the experience deeper for our students. But the experience would have been there, but it's deeper. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And
Okay.
love hearing that. Would love to
Okay.
see
Yeah.
further investments of ESSER as you're thinking about how we're going to spend $43 million down and having, still students around 50% entering, 2-year, 4-year college. So just challenging you and the team to think about whether it makes sense continuing to invest in our early college program so that we can continue to see higher ed grade enrollment. So yes, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent, thank you for your reports. The next item on the agenda is to approve the June 14th meeting minutes. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Maria, please call the roll.
Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Yes.
Edgar de Leon,
Yes.
Arlene Garcia,
Yes.
Juana Matias,
Yes.
Maria Muller,
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes. Thank you. Before we adjourn, I'd like to take a moment to ask members of the community to consider participating in our LAE Board meetings. This is going to be a very important year where we'll be appointing a new superintendent, developing a transition plan, and meeting many of the benchmarks outlined in the turnaround plan. Your input in all these areas is welcomed and necessary. I also would urge the board members here in your day-to-day connections with members of the community to mention our meetings and urge people to attend. I will remind you that it takes a village to raise a child, and the 13,000-plus students are counting on us to provide them with the best educational system possible, and I'm confident that we can do it together. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn with the next anticipated LAE Board meeting scheduled for October 11th, 2023. Motion?
Madam Chair, just a point of question. I'm looking at our agenda, and under the superintendent's report, we were supposed to vote on the subdivision of 33 Hamlin Street next to 27 Auburn Street. Do we want to move that to the next meeting so that we can proceed with adjournment?
I think we would like to have Mr. McCarthy or Mr. Cirillo from the city join us just to explain the vote to the members, what exactly that would mean, so that we can take an informed vote, just like we did in the June meeting on the easements for the Partham School, just so that they can show the board exactly what you're voting for.
That sounds great, Superintendent. I second your motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Maria, please call the roll.
Dr. Dolores Calaf,
Yes.
Edgar de Leon,
Yes.
Arlene Garcia.
Yes.
Juana Matias.
Yes.
Maria Muller.
Yes.
Chair Patricia Mariano.
Yes. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.